By now, most of us have heard the infamous recording of then President Trump pushing Georgia's Secretary of State to change the outcome of the 2020 election.
I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break. So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state. There's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated.
Well, now, a new book reveals the extent of the pressure campaign on Georgia and the lengths that some Trump associates have gone to in order to keep an investigation into their actions at bay. The book is entitled Find Me the Votes, a hard-charging Georgia prosecutor, a rogue president, and the plot to steal an American election. And the co-authors, award-winning investigative journalist Michael Isikoff and Daniel Kleidman, join us now. Congratulations on the book.
Congratulations, guys. A couple things just jump out here. Right? Yeah. Let's just start with Sidney Powell. You say one of the president's top legal advisors plotted criminal break-ins at election offices around the country in order to seize machines and sensitive software. Talk about that.
I mean, look, that is a perfect example of just how far the Trump people were prepared to go, in particular in Georgia, to overturn the results of the election. Sidney Powell, who, by the way, as we discovered in reporting this, was in regular communication with Donald Trump the whole time, throughout the time. She's calling Trump in the White House. Trump is calling down to her and her Confederate Lynn Wood, a full-blown QAnon adherent. And one of the plans, she was convinced that they were Venezuelan socialists who had planted secret algorithms in Dominion voting machines. Early on, just within a week after the election, she draws up a plan for criminal break-ins at election offices around the country to seize those Dominion machines and to protect the operatives who would do that, assigned to do that, with hunting licenses, which were preemptive presidential pardons.
Right.
And we trace how it goes from that to an actual break-in that took place in this rural county in Georgia, Coffee County. Operatives, it's been charged as a case of computer theft in the Georgia.
And Daniel, just a bizarre moment you guys have here with Lindsey Graham, who fights the subpoena for months. After he testifies, he goes up and he hugs Fani Willis, thanks her, says that was so cathartic.
What?
And threw him, supposedly he threw Trump under the bus during the testimony. Talk about that bizarre encounter.
Well, we talked to people who were in the grand jury, grand jurors who saw this and described exactly what happened and threw him under the bus. That's how they described it. And as you pointed out, Joe,
Lindsey Graham threw Trump under the bus.
He did. He said, among other things, he said, if Martians told Donald Trump that the election was stolen, he would have believed it. Mm-hmm. One of the kind of lighter moments is when he also accused Donald Trump of cheating at golf. Right. But I love the word cathartic because here's a guy, Lindsey Graham, who was John McCain, the maverick who bucked his own party, was his mentor and his hero. Trump comes along, and all of a sudden he's swearing obeisance to Donald Trump. And you have to wonder whether there's some internal struggle going on inside Lindsey Graham. And finally, he gets in front of a grand jury, is sworn to tell the truth, and he unburdens himself. Mm-hmm. So he calls it cathartic, and he hugs Fani Willis. An extraordinary moment.
No, they're denying it. But you have testimony.
Oh yeah,
you have testimony.
We had an eyewitness.
We have eyewitnesses. We have multiple sources. It happened.
Yeah. He was caught telling the truth, realizing Donald Trump, and had to say it was BS.
It's kind of like Mark Meadows writing his book, Trump attacking it, and then Mark Meadows attacking his own book.
Calling his own book fake news.
Yes, exactly.
A stunning moment.
Good job.
Let's talk about the phone call, Mike, that we just played there.
Yep.
How that came to pass. You actually talked to the aide to Secretary of State Raffensperger, who helped to make this happen.
Who made it happen.
Yeah.
This is one of the extraordinary stories, unknown stories of the whole 2020 election battle. Look, Georgia was ground zero for everything that took place during the 2020 election. It's where Trump's pressure campaign was most furious, most intense. It is worth noting that Republicans in Georgia, Republican office holders, at every step of the way thwarted everything he was trying to do. From Raffensperger, obviously, Chris Carr, the Attorney General, who vowed to resign rather than back Trump's campaign to have a special session of the state legislature. But the one that stands out and made the most difference was this aide to Raffensperger, Jordan Fuchs, a 30-year-old political consultant, unknown to the wider world. Meadows reaches out to her to set up that phone call. They've been avoiding talking to Trump because Trump was suing them, and she didn't want her boss on the phone with Donald Trump, have Trump completely distort the contents. So she decides on her own, unilaterally, she's going to tape the call. She's on the phone call the whole time. She puts herself on mute, so you never hear her voice. But she taped the whole thing, and had it not been for that, we would not have those.
So, by the way, it was an extremely risky thing for her to do because she was visiting her grandparents at the time, which was a two-party in Florida, which is a two-party consent state. She needed the consent of whoever she was taping. She didn't get it. Exposed herself to potential criminal prosecution. I don't think that's going to happen at the end, but it was a risky and courageous thing to do.
And she did. She's never talked about it publicly, but when she testified before the special grand jury under immunity, she acknowledged she.
So Brad Raffensperger did not know at the time.
At the time, she had not told Raffensperger. She had not told Meadows, and of course, she didn't tell Trump. It was
a hinge of history.
The single gutsiest and most consequential act of the post-election saga.
So, Daniel, a phenomenon we're seeing right now is a lot of threats against people, prosecutors, politicians and the like, who stand up to Donald Trump. There's a wave of swatting incidents. Fani Willis, the DA down in Fulton County, has also received a lot of those. You have evidence, proof of calls, text, emails, voice memos, assassination attempts.
In the days before the indictment, these threats are intensifying against her. And her security staff, they notice an assassination threat on a dark web MAGA site. The best time to shoot her is when she leaves the building. So they set up an elaborate operation that involves a body double. After the midnight indictment she announces the indictment, which she after the indictment, about 1 a.m, she and her team go to the back office, where she changes out of her business attire into sweats, a T-shirt, and a baseball cap. Meanwhile, someone on her staff, a woman about the same size, an investigator, changes into clothes that resemble what Fani Willis was wearing: black business suit, a string of pearls, and a black bob wig. The body double goes out the front of the courthouse.
Wearing a Kevlar bulletproof
She is
vest.
wearing a bulletproof vest, goes out of the front of the courthouse, gets in the official black SUVs. Meanwhile, Fani Willis and her team go out, slip out the back of the courthouse, get into civilian cars, and leave for an undisclosed...
smuggled out of the office.
Undisclosed location. Really dramatic moment.
Sign of just how these threats have, had such an impact on everybody involved in these cases.
Can I make one more just quick point about the threats, which is, the big political moment, question of this moment, which you guys talk about on this show all the time, is why so many mainstream Republicans, so-called normal Republicans, haven't stood up to Donald Trump. A lot of it is expediency, I'm sure, but a lot of it, we're told, is these threats, particularly people who are worried about their families.
Right.
And we saw this all over Georgia. Brad Raffensperger's wife, who we talked to, we saw the text message that she was getting, the torrent of messages, horrific sexual threats against her over and over again. And, Mitt Romney said in his memoir that he pays $5,000 a day to protect himself and his family. Most people can't afford that, even in the Senate. Yeah. So this is corrosive to democracy, and it's a pretty serious thing.
A lot of Republicans said that after January 6th. It's just a threat to our families. We can't say anything.
Absolutely.
Before we let you guys go, we know, as we talk about Fani Willis here, that the Trump legal team wants her off the case because of her alleged relationship with the special prosecutor, Nathan Wade, that she appointed. Is her role in this case, in your assessment, in jeopardy here? Could she be pulled off, and how would it affect it?
Well, she's going to be filing a response later this week, and it will be the first response she makes to the allegations. And, we have reason to believe it's going to be a pretty vigorous pushback on at least on some of what has been alleged. Look, there's no question that this was a lapse in judgment on her part to have a relationship with Nathan Wade, who was the chief prosecutor on the case. But that said, it is worth keeping this in perspective. None of that had any impact on the case whatsoever. It didn't deny anybody their constitutional rights. It was not a case of prosecutorial misconduct. It doesn't influence any of the evidence in the case. So we'll see after she responds, and the judge has a hearing February 15th. But
the legal threshold for disqualification is an actual conflict of interest. It's a very high bar. And at the end of the day, the judge is going to have to make the decision based on law, based on precedent, and there has to be that conflict. And I don't know that there is.
Well, and the question is, did a conflict disadvantage a defendant?
Exactly.
And
exactly.
There's no evidence of that at all.
There's not only is there no evidence of that, but if you're arguing that the prosecutor got the job because of a personal relationship, well, it wasn't based on merit, so that would actually help the defendant.
It's a good point.
I'm serious.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
Saying, there's just not an argument to be made.
Yeah.
Just one other quick point. One of the things we do report on the book is she had a hard time finding anybody to take that job because of the threats. The former governor of Georgia, Roy Barnes, turned her down, saying he didn't want a bodyguard following him around for the rest of his life. Another federal prosecutor did. So, there's a lot of complexities to this story that have not
All
fully
right.
been understood.
The new book is entitled Find Me the Votes, a hard-charging Georgia prosecutor, a rogue president, and the plot to steal an American election. Fascinating new details. Michael Isikoff and Daniel Kleidman, thank you both very much for coming on the show. Congratulations.
Thank you.